That order stands. The SCA has confirmed it. And as we stand here at the moment, there's a court order that stipulates that Zuma has to report at the escort prison.
Is former President Jacob Zuma heading to jail? Well, the Supreme Court of Appeal on Monday handed down a judgment which upheld an earlier ruling that deemed his medical parole to be unlawful and unconstitutional. Joining me to discuss is Willie Spies. We're recording this video on Tuesday morning, so please do forgive us if this is out of date by the time it airs on Wednesday morning. Willie Spies, welcome to the show.
Thanks, David.
So, Willie, you were representing AfriForum in this matter. Could you tell us what were the arguments that you made to the SCA, and what is your view on the judgment that's been handed down on Monday?
Well, the arguments were simple. The arguments were that it was not for the Commissioner of Corrective Services to grant medical parole, especially in circumstances where the parole board, which is the statutory body that deals with parole applications, has already made its decision clear. In the case of Zuma, we know that submissions were made by his lawyers for parole, for medical parole. There were these allegations of terminally illness, which seems to have disappeared after his release. But be that as it may, those were the arguments, those were the alleged facts that were put to the medical parole board. The parole board considered those facts and decided that those facts did not constitute a proper case for the granting of medical parole. But there is a clause in the legislation that enables the Commissioner of Corrective Services, Correctional Services, to grant medical parole if he so deems fit. Now, obviously, the fact that a person can do that doesn't give him a blank check, to put it that way, to do as he wishes. If the commissioner decides to grant medical parole, he needs to have good reason for that, and he still needs to act rationally. In this case, it was argued before the High Court. The High Court accepted the arguments by all the parties that the rationality test was not met when Arthur Fraser granted special parole to Jacob Zuma. And the High Court granted certain orders. One of the orders were that Zuma had to go back to jail. The second order was that the period that he was out of jail as a result of this unlawful parole being granted should not be considered as part of his jail term. And the third one was just a declaratory order specifying the powers of both the commissioner and the parole board. The Supreme Court of Appeal dismissed the appeal by Zuma and the Commissioner of Correctional Services, but it has set aside two specific orders, the two declaratory orders, the one dealing with the question of whether the time that Zuma was out should be regarded as jail time or not, and the second one, the declaratory order setting out the powers of the parole board and the commissioner. The Supreme Court of Appeal felt that it was not necessary for a court at this stage to go into those two issues and to grant relief in that regard. So those two orders were set aside, but the most important one is the order number 4 of the High Court judgment, which specified that Zuma has to return to custody. That order stands. The SCA has confirmed it, and as we stand here at the moment, there's a court order that stipulates that Zuma has to report at the escort prison. I've been in the office this morning. I don't know if anything happened this morning yet, of which I haven't heard yet. We'll have to see, and we'll have to watch this space. Unfortunately, the court did not make it easy for members of the public to determine what will happen now. There is certain uncertainty, a degree of uncertainty as a result of this judgment. because the court said that in setting aside the declaratory order with regards to the status of the time that he was out, that is not a decision for the court to make. That is a decision for the Commissioner of Correctional Services to make. And so in that regard, the court actually kicked the ball back to Correctional Services. And it's going to be an open question how Correctional Services will deal with that question. And we know that there's a new commissioner. It's not Arthur Fraser at the moment. But if, and I'm just speculating at the moment, if there's a decision by the new commissioner that term is not regarded as serving his sentence, then technically he will have to return to jail. If the commissioner makes a finding that he does regard it as part of the jail term, well, obviously that's a decision again, and that's a decision that is once again open for review, judicial review if needs be. But the fact of the matter and the good thing about what happened yesterday is the court made a very clear decision with regards to the lawfulness of the conduct of Arthur Fraser. That also opens up a new arena of possible litigation, and that's the possibility of litigation against Arthur Fraser in his personal capacity. To a very large extent, I think there is a prima facie case that he defeated the ends of justice in his conduct. Zuma was sent to jail by the constitutional court, the apex court of this country, and an official, a commissioner of correctional services, effectively overruled a ruling by the constitutional court in an unlawful manner. As far as I'm concerned, I think there's very good argument that constitutes defeating the ends of justice. So I do foresee that there is a possibility that further action could be taken by NGOs such as AfriForum against this very specific aspect of the matter. But be that as it may, the SCA has had its say, and the SCA made the legal position very clear, and there is legal certainty about whether or not a commissioner could abuse his powers as he did.
Yeah, but it strikes me that the Correctional Services Commissioner does have an extraordinary amount of discretionary power. And I think Helen Suzman Foundation in its papers pointed out that Arthur Fraser, when he was the commissioner, had denied 100 other applications, that Mr. Zuma's application was the only one that he granted, which seems to indicate that his specific preferences there. In terms of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, I mean, Zondo also recommended that criminal investigations be opened up against Mr. Fraser as well. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if that goes ahead, as we just spoke about. So what is the next step, Willie?
Well, the next step obviously is to wait and see. We'll have to see what the commissioner does, because as I said, the ball is in the commissioner's court at the moment. I think we wait in patience and anxiety to hear what he has to rule. Paragraph 60 of the judgment specifically stated that the commissioner now needs to make a certain decision, and that decision needs to be communicated. And well, depending on what the decision is, the next legal step will follow. There are no time limits, but normally in cases like these, when a court finds that a person needs to report to a certain prison, then it normally has to be within the next 48 hours. So a warrant for his arrest could be issued, or a warrant demanding that he should report at the prison could be issued very shortly. And I can just guess that the officials and the politicians and everyone that plays a part within the administration of the Department of Correctional Services is probably deliberating at this very moment what they need to do with this judgment. Let's wait and see, but I think anytime soon we will know what the decision of the commissioner will be, and then that decision will have further consequences either way.
Willie Spies, thank you very much. Let's hand over to you, our audience. Do you think that Mr. Zuma will go to jail? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section. Also, if you enjoyed this analysis, you might want to become a subscriber to the CRA's client services. There's a link in the description below where you can find out more. My name is David Ansara. Until next time, take care.